Guys, A to Z Sports little extra here for you. Right before the speech, we are pleased to have Doc Emrick with us. Doc, thanks for being here.
This is fun.
Well, perfect. I guess we'll just start with what made you decide to come here to Point Park to give this speech?
2 words, Tom McMillan. Tom said, "Will you come?" And when Tom says that, I come. That's it. It's nice to be invited because I always like to be around kids to see what they're thinking about and also what their ambitions are within media. I was one of them a long time ago, but I was one of them.
How have, I know between myself and Matt Desmond, who's been here, we've kind of told you about how technology is here. How much have you noticed the change in technology?
Oh, it's been radical, especially in the last 10 years. Because the cameras that we used to have to broadcast hockey, for example, were enormously heavy. Twice the size they are now. And now the resolution is higher, except in high-def cameras, which have to be bigger for the obvious reason. But the cameras that we were using for standard 3x4 television had gotten so much lighter, just like hockey equipment, I guess. Everything gets more streamlined and a lot easier to work with, and you can do so much more than you were able to at one time. So we've made radical improvements in the last 10 years. The first 20 or so that I was in the NHL were pretty much the same every year. We just weren't making a lot of progress. But now, even in inadequate lighting, and the league has standardized lighting in all these new arenas, but even in inadequate lighting, we can still get a pretty good picture out there.
What do you hope that students get out of your speech today?
That they don't quit. Because there are frustrations in breaking into this business. The hardest job to get is the first one. And if you haven't gone after the first one yet, I just don't want you to feel like your career is over if you don't get the first job you apply for. I waited 7 years and spent an awful lot of time going into arenas and sitting in the corner and doing games to myself before anyone saw in one of the tapes or listened to it that I had something that they could use. So it took quite a while, but if you really like doing something enough, you take the setbacks that go with it, because there are some.
How much prep work do you feel, I know that you're kind of used to it now, but how much prep work goes into a game for you?
In a perfect world, 8 hours. Usually 4 the night before and 4 the day of. That doesn't count the time that is spent at practices. That's the time that you actually write things down and convert them to what you can use. Each team will publish maybe 25-30 pages of NHL stats, another 25 or 30 pages of statistics just for that matchup that night, and sometimes they'll publish all the newspaper articles that are written that day. So you're looking at anywhere between 75 and 100 pages of material. What I try to do is to limit that and water it down and filter it down to where it's on either side of an 8x10 card that also has a grid for keeping score and penalties and things like that. So if I'm able to convert it that way, that saves me having to rifle through all of those papers when a goal is scored or when something happens, looking for something. It also tells me that I've been all the way through all of it if I finish making entries on my card. Perfect world, 8 hours. We don't get perfect worlds all the time, especially with matinee games when there is no morning practice. So that means that a lot of your work has to be done afternoon and evening and into the late hours the night before matinee. So I'd really like to get 8 hours of prep in, and I find preparation is fun. But not everybody does, but I find that it is.
Why NHL? What's made you stick with the sport of hockey for this kind of period of time?
I just like it. You know, when you have a love for a sport, it's not work. And I've done NFL, and that's work. And I've done NCAA basketball, and that's work.
Oh, yeah. I was talking about you.
I did the World Lose Championships, and that was work. But hockey has never been work for me. The group of athletes that you deal with are terrific, and I think for that reason it's been really easy for me to just stay with hockey for 39 years.
So just looking at it, just going back to the question just about personal highlights for you so far in this third.
Well, I think probably the most recent one was the gold medal game in Vancouver. Many of the things that I remember most, I think the Olympics get in your blood when you get a chance to do it. And so there are a lot of Olympic moments that stay with me longer probably than regular season NHL games. There's some playoff moments that have stayed with me for a lot of years too. But I think Crosby's goal in overtime and Parise's goal that forced overtime are two memories that I have. I don't know exactly what I said. I can't remember because I don't watch them back. But to be in that arena at that time with those two plays that were made, I think will stay with me a long time.
Since Tom McMillan is not in the room, what do you think do you think the Penguins have a very good shot of making a deep playoff run?
Yeah, the best. The best. I can make a case today for 8 teams winning, and the strongest case would be for them. Now that they're healthy, you know, you always have to have that caveat of whether you're healthy enough to win or not. As long as their health stays, their depth at all positions, you know, even backup goaltender, I don't think they're bad there. Especially if they get to the point where they have to have it some night to spell Marc-Andre late in a blowout game, which every team winds up getting if they go on a long run. They get beat badly once. I don't think they're in a problem there. They've got one of the best coaches that's ever walked the earth, let alone this season in the NHL. With all those things together, you've got to make a case for them, the strongest case to win.
Since you described the fantasy camp experience, I guess we'll go from past to present. What do you think of this year's Pirates and how they're going to be molded, and how many wins do you think that they will have this season?
74.
74?
I sure wish it were 82, because I think we'd all like the credibility of at least having more wins than losses. But I think they're good for 72. The start of the season is going to be rough because of the first 5 opponents are murder. Phillies, the Dodgers, the Giants, the Diamondbacks, and then back home to play the Cardinals. I mean, the league did them no favors with that schedule. So they're probably going to be sub 500, and pretty strongly so, by the time they get back here to play the Cardinals after they've been on the road for 3 sets and opened here at home against the Phillies. A lot is going to hinge on Alvarez. I hope he has a good year. He's 25 now. We've been waiting a little while for him. So I hope. But that's all we do is hope. Because we're Pirate fans. We hope. And there was a time when hopes got realized every year. But Glass retired. Colby retired. Sanguillen retired. Clementi, unfortunately, is not with us. Same for Stargell. Those days are past. So now we have to live with the reality, and maybe they'll get better. And better is all we can hope for.
Last question I have to ask you is there anything you'd like to add or contribute in final thoughts?
No, I don't really have anything other than the fact that it's a gorgeous day here. Hockey's going to be played in Pittsburgh tonight and in several other places. All the games will be engrossing because the standings are such, maybe it's decreed by parity, that every game will mean something today. And so I just count myself, you know, as a cancer survivor of 21 years, I'm lucky to be here.
Everybody, that was Doc Emrick. We thank you so much for joining us, and obviously best wishes for the season ahead and for seasons in front.